Good afternoon. I got to tell you, I'm a little bit nervous. This is live. Every day I wonder what's happened to the last 12 months. As I stand here before you, I just cannot help trying to remember life before COVID. When we could assemble without concern, we could attend public events, school events, and a workplace that was vibrant and alive, to now what can be desolation, lack of interaction, struggles with daycare, with school, with weddings, funerals, and just general instability. I think we've all felt that. The vaccination is going to change and allow us to get back to a likely new normal, but probably not back to a replica of our prior life for a long, long time. Excuse me. From my view, as an agency, I could not be more proud of your COVID responses. As I said early on, there was no playbook, but we have one now, and we all did the very, very best that we could. The priority was you and your families, because if you were not healthy, they were not healthy. If they were not healthy, then you could not provide the service to our citizens that you do. Our COVID spread over time remained unusually low compared with other large agencies. A sincere thanks to all of you. Yesterday, we had only 2 people currently affected by a positive COVID test. While calls for service were down, significant events continued to occur, and you were always there. We have proven to be a very resilient, very capable, and highly effective agency during times of crisis. And we've sure had our share. Now let me explain to you why I'm standing in this empty auditorium in the Indiana Government Center South. May 25th, 2020 will be viewed as one of the most significant days in the history of American law enforcement. George Floyd's death at the hands of those police officers on that dreadful day has left an indelible mark on not only our profession, but more importantly, on all of our citizens, no matter what their zip code is, what color they are, what's their culture, what's their belief system, or what is their perception of our service to them. I really wish over time I would have cataloged and documented these last 8 months or so from a very personal perspective. But since I did not, like many of you, we will carry the memories with us forever on how that day affected us individually. And from a global perspective, how did it affect American law enforcement? Please allow me to be vulnerable for a minute. I have missed many opportunities this last year to properly communicate with all of you, to address events that have occurred around the country in real time, and even right here at home that have affected all of us individually and everybody that you represent. Post meetings and district assemblies were canceled. I even had to cancel our sacred annual memorial services in 2020. All of these examples should have been a clear sign to me. But I missed it. I will not stand here and offer excuses. You deserve better than that. But I will stand here wishing I had a redo and to acknowledge to each of you that I am sorry I missed those many opportunities. This last year will undoubtedly be a period in my career that I will regret because of the many misses that I had. Man, hindsight's 2020. The Indianapolis racial justice protests that turned into riots on the heels of George Floyd's death are etched in my mind forever. The downtown Indianapolis area was literally unrecognizable on May 29th and beyond. I vividly remember standing on the east side of the Capitol with our TIP squads and looking east towards the monument, where oftentimes I would go and view at a time of solace and peace, generally from the second or third floor of the Capitol building, looking east down Market Street. Spectacular view. That night, the smell of tear gas, fires, burning tires, and even gunshots filled the air in our city. We were being pelted with rocks, with bricks, with frozen water bottles, what we believed to have been urine-filled canisters, and nearly anything that could be launched at us. Thousands of protesters filled the streets that were mostly closed. Many of the protesters were peaceful, good people, exercising their First Amendment right. Or they were there to make their voices heard, or to just simply witness events. But a small percentage of them changed our city forever. Every one of you matter to me. Every one of you matter to me. But the words I heard and the actions of the rioters that were solely focused on our black, brown, and female troopers was disgusting. I can close my eyes like it was last night. It was hateful and it was incredibly offensive. Each of you maintained this calm and professional and steady state during those most difficult times. I was so proud of all of you that stood that line, and I was honored to be there with you. In early June, I invited many minority members of the ISP to this very place where I stand today. I started off in complete bewilderment and with an apologetic tone to each of them after seeing how they were treated during the weekend riots. Unfortunately, many of them were not surprised by the way in which they were treated. The gathering soon became an opportunity for many in the audience to share how they have been spoken to and treated during their careers, both inside and outside of our agency. I will never forget one person saying to me, "Superintendent, when was the last time you were ever in a room and no one looked like you?" I was standing right in front of this podium when I was asked that question. Hearing the question and then answering never was and will always be a defining moment in my life. It helped me begin to understand that I don't understand. That moment helped me to begin to understand that I don't understand. The things that I heard that day that others have experienced as Indiana State Troopers would rock the conscience of most of you. Our words matter. Our words matter. It's not the intent of your words, but rather the impact of the words that you use. Another consistent message was that, generally speaking, they feel that those that said or did offensive things did not realize that they were being offensive. Now hear me there. In many of these occasions, they feel like the things that were said or done, they didn't think the person that did it was intentionally being offensive. What does that tell us? I hope over these last many months that maybe a bit of reckoning has occurred. I know it has with me. I know it has with me. I also learned that day that I do see color. From a comment that was made to me in the back of this very room. I do see color. And I recognize that there is much left for us to do. As I've said today, I'm standing in this very auditorium where these conversations occurred for almost 2 hours. First, because of the importance of what I heard that day, and secondly, to show the magnitude and size of this challenge and the many opportunities that are before us is why I'm standing in this huge space. We cannot, we should not try to erase or marginalize or pretend that historical events did not occur. But we should learn from them. We should recognize them. We should never forget them. But we must heal. Over these last several months, I've read a lot about Dr. Martin Luther King and that era in an attempt to understand and gain perspective. Because like I said, I learned that day that I don't understand. I wanted to gain the perspective on what we actually face today. Well, more than 50 years ago are the dates on the documents that I've reviewed and read of speeches that he gave all around this nation. All we would have to do is change the date. And what Dr. Martin Luther King talked about is 2020, 2021. I was struck by the consistency of the division then compared to now. I so hope that the same does not happen 50 years from now. Are we going to let that happen? Everyone deserves better. Everyone deserves better, especially especially those that don't look like me. A couple of weeks after the large gathering in the auditorium, I asked for a small group to be assembled at our museum in Indianapolis. The intent was to determine if our younger troopers, 1 to 3 to 4 years, had experienced similar things that I heard about in this very room. I intentionally did not attend that day because I wanted them to have the ability to speak openly and candidly, and they did. Sadly, everybody, the stories were very similar. I do not and will not apologize for either of these gatherings and never intended to leave anyone out. I never intended to leave anyone out. But I deeply regret not responding until now. I was getting advice from many, many people. And I realized I just did not know what to do. These issues associated with our human existence are decades, generations, and even centuries old. There is not a decision or an action that can be taken to make it all okay. But we must recognize the magnitude and reality of our divide. I guess the first step is to recognize it. And I believe with all my heart that it's there. In other words, we start with how we treat one another. How welcoming we are to each other. How do you deal with conflict with a person that doesn't look like you, think like you, love like you, or a person that simply sees the world from a different plane or a different place? If you haven't noticed, our globe is out of balance. Our globe is out of balance. I know this sounds really simplistic, everybody, but how else and where else do we start? I've asked people all over this great state, what do I do? There's no dimmer, there's no on-off switch. What do I do as a leader of this agency? The consistent message is recognize that it's real. And I believe it is. We have laws, we have rules, we have policies and the like, but have they worked? I would suggest they have not, because here we are, some 50 years later, from a very articulate point in our American history. Might be a pipe dream, but I really believe that if we start now, maybe one day we'll find some peace. Maybe one day we'll find some peace. I recently heard a US Senator say, hesitated to even reference this, but I'm not going to take credit for what he said, because I don't want this to be political. But he said, are we perfect? The answer is no. But we are free to repair our faults. Senator Rick Scott from the state of Florida. But we are free to repair our faults. Very few other countries on this planet can say that. Let's not miss this opportunity. The responsibility rests with really each of us. So I guess the question is, will you? Because I'll do my part. Within the next 30 days, I will identify a cultural diversity officer to address issues of equity and inclusion within our agency. This will be a new position that will answer directly to me. The intent is to offer a direct point of contact to each of you to discuss events, comments, or situations that you felt were inappropriate, uncomfortable, or offensive, that currently are required to go through a very formal process for any action to occur. I want all of you to have that person that can come and sit down with me and say, here's what happened. Remember what I said earlier. Many of these situations were not intentional. I've heard from many of you that this person would be very instrumental in addressing issues outside of that formal structure. Kind of weird for us because it's outside of a formal structure. But let's try this. Let's be a little bit different. We get outside that structure, behavioral changes can maybe occur with simple communication, talking with each other, rather than continuing to push a divide, because we won't. It's my belief and desire that by creating a position like this that reports directly to me, that we can open this informal channel for any employee who may feel like they have been treated differently or unfairly to have an opportunity to be heard. While still having formal options. while still having formal options. Additionally, I will address our recruiting initiatives and explain the why and how we are currently functioning. Another miss on my behalf. I'm very proud of the current recruiting initiatives. I didn't think that our numbers would be near what they are in totality. This class, for the upcoming 81st class, based upon the events of 2020. But I know we can always do more. I've said this so many times, that everybody plays a role. Everybody plays a role. It's amazing when you ask people, hey, how'd you become interested in the ISP? I saw a car, I have a relationship, or was at church, or it was my friend's dad, or my mom, or my friend's mom, or whoever it might be. A promotional process review will occur in the coming months, along with a detailed review associated with career advancement, mobility, and planning for all. I'm looking forward to these processes. In 2021, you can expect an agency-wide review with a focus on the front line. With a focus on the front line. Every division, every district, every section will be reviewed. I believe that without understanding our past, we cannot properly prepare for our future. A lot has happened in these 8+ years. Some you agree with, some you don't. I'm not one, and I'll never be a guy that will say, because we've always done it that way, we're not going to change. We found ourselves at a crossroads. We have to address these issues head on, and that's exactly what we'll do. As we embark on this final 45 months, my focus will be on sustainability, succession planning, operational mobility, and working tirelessly to take care of our most important asset, and that is you. You've proven to me you can take care of our citizens. It's my job to take care of you. I'm committing to you today that you can expect at least an operational overview from me each quarter. The next time I have this opportunity, I will address in some detail some of our operational, logistical issues and things that are affecting us internally. And of course, share with you events, things, struggles, challenges that might be coming to us from an external perspective. In the meantime, I'm always available and do anticipate getting to the field sometime in the next month, maybe a month and a half. I've got some work to do out there, and I'm looking forward to that period of time. We'll post those dates and times when they're identified. I know we are a resilient bunch. We fuss with each other in the course of a regular day. But when bad things are happening to good people, we come together. While we are steeped in history as an agency and as a profession, we are facing unprecedented times. The true review of how we did during our time, doesn't come in an annual evaluation. Rather, it comes when you're all long gone. These unprecedented times calls for unprecedented realizations and efforts. Everybody, our profession is forever changed. And in the grand scheme of things, I guess that's not necessarily a bad thing all in all. Because we should take some responsibility for the way in which the world is today, with how people perceive us. I've talked about that for a long time. We cannot miss this opportunity. Because if we do, history will not be good to us. Will not be good to us. I am committed to doing my part in the hopes that these many issues are not once again passed on to the next generation. The time is now to stand for our profession. The time is now to stand for our profession, to hold each other accountable, to not cave to the notion that we are all bad people, and to not let lone, irresponsible, callous, and illegal action of some divide us or define us. I don't think there's a policeman in America that wouldn't die for a person that hates who they are. I will never concede that we're all bad. In closing, the Indiana State Police has been a part of my life almost since the day I was born. I have always and always will cherish this agency and its employees, past, present, and future, just as I do a beloved member of my own family. I stand here alone, not only because of this crazy virus that we've been experiencing over the last year or so, but as the symbolism that I understand the immense responsibilities that I willingly shoulder for the care of our profession. As we approach these impending crossroads, we all must recognize that we have found ourselves in the most consequential period of our time, the most consequential period of our time. How will we respond? How will you respond? Some have suggested that the best way through tough times is right up the middle. I could not agree more. I could not agree more. Until next time, take good care of yourselves. Please be careful, and I wish all of you the very best.